Hi everyone, we want to thank you for joining us for this year's State of the YAYA report, Under No Illusion. We're all part of the MOJO Ad team, a full-service student-staffed advertising agency. My name is Jordan Helterbrand, and I'm a public relations account executive.
I'm Mackenzie Elliott, and I'm an account planner.
I'm Maddie Watson, and I'm also an account planner.
My name is Grace Corley, and I'm an account executive.
I'm Allison Hill, and I'm a digital strategist.
My name is Aaron Carter, and I'm an account executive.
My name is Madison Stemler. I'm an art director, and I'll be managing the presentation for you.
The market research we're about to share with you may seem obscure or even a little difficult to see. But don't worry, upon closer inspection, it's not as elusive as it seems.
Throughout the presentation, we'll reveal all the tricks, leaving you with clear insights that you can apply to your brand. Soon, you'll be able to see the YAYA consumer for who they really are, under no illusion. Afterward, if you need more clarity, we'll be holding a brief Q&A. Please comment in the Facebook live chat you see on the screen, or tweet us at MOJO Ad with questions. We're the specialists in all things young, and we're here to help you see the full picture.
In September 2019, we conducted an online survey of over 700 YAYA consumers nationwide. With these results and established sources like Pew and Mintel, we're able to break down the attitudes and behaviors of the YAYA demographic. We're the authority for seeing this demographic clearly, without any misconceptions, and we're here to help you all see it too. We divided our research into 3 volumes. First up is depth. We want to get a deeper look into the YAYA market's attitudes concerning the news, politics, and citizenship, and how corporations can come into play.
Then, we'll help you see the duality surrounding how they communicate, how they use social media, and how they approach dating.
And lastly, we're going to show you how they act as employees, what the word healthcare really means to them, and how they handle their money, all in totality.
But first, let's clarify one thing. What is a YAYA consumer? They're today's 18 to 24-year-olds, and you probably have some preconceived perceptions about this group. Are they really sensitive, shallow, and lazy? Or are these things your mind just wants you to see? Let's take a moment to look at the YAYA individual from a new angle. You'll see there's a lot more to them than meets the eye.
Let the State of the YAYA 2020 be your guide to unveiling the truths that the data keeps hidden in plain sight. You'll be more confident moving forward because the thing about illusions is, once you see them, you can't unsee them. First, let's take a look at who a YAYA consumer really is.
They're 18 to 24-year-olds, which means they're at the beginning of adulthood. They have to figure out how to be the employees, consumers, and citizens their world needs them to be. They're part of the youngest demographic that can vote. And on top of that, they're the age group whose futures are most affected by public policy.
If you look below the surface, you'll see that they're trying to solve the problems that their generation is facing. But no one can solve anything without having the right information. So first, let's take a look at how the YAYA individual is consuming the news. First, there is so much news coming their way, and second, it's becoming harder and harder to find the real information. So they're taking it upon themselves to seek it out. Now, YAYA individuals are the new protectors of the truth.
To see them clearly, realize YAYA individuals have a deep distrust in the news. The Knight Foundation reports that half of U.S. adults see made-up news as, The Knight Foundation says the majority of college students have little to no trust in the press to report the news accurately and fairly. They interact with the news every day, whether they're seeking it out or not. CNN is on Snapchat. Newsweek is on Tumblr. The Washington Post is even experimenting with a TikTok. They're overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information.
Plus, now there are citizen journalists. Everyone is posting their take. But are they a real source of news? What about friends and family? What about the president? You see, it's no wonder they're having a hard time finding credible information. The facts are buried under an illusion, fake news. In fact, 35% of YAYA individuals believe that everything is fake news. Everything. That means that even traditionally respected news outlets like the New York Times or the BBC lose credibility.
Fake news weighs more on the YAYA individual than you'd first perceive. Listen to this. Half of U.S. adults see made-up news as one of the biggest problems in the U.S. today, even more problematic than issues like climate change, racism, or terrorism. Not only that, but 68% of U.S. adults say made-up news impacts their confidence in government institutions. Now that may seem surprising, but should it be? You need to see what's really at stake here. It's more than a fear of losing sight of the truth. It's a fear of losing the ability to form their own opinions. 87% of YAYA individuals agree that some news coverage sounds like propaganda.
It seems like they have nowhere to turn for accurate information, so they have to trust fall onto friends and family to catch them up on everything current, because they trust people they know over institutions they don't. They lean on familiarity. News organizations are like strangers to them. 67% of YAYA individuals believe that the media doesn't understand them or people like them. They don't want to be told what to believe by someone who doesn't even understand them. On top of that, just under half of this demographic believes that it's their family and friends who most influence their political beliefs.
If it doesn't totally make sense, look at it this way. When they get news from a family member or friend, they feel comfortable enough to agree, argue, or totally disregard. They get a deeper worldview. They're critical thinkers. They take it upon themselves to peel back the layers of false information to get the real story. 78% of YAYA individuals agree that the media doesn't fact check, so they have to do it themselves. And only 8% of them say they never fact check the news. They're fact checking the fact checkers, and that's not supposed to be their job. But if they don't do it, who will?
YAYA individuals will always search for the truth, but they appreciate it when the news makes it easier on them. Let's look at the New York Times. They publish a weekly fact-check article, and they encourage their readers to call them out through email and Twitter to hold them accountable for accuracy. When we prompted our survey respondents to name their top 3 most trustworthy news sources, the highest percentage of them chose the New York Times. The Times proves that keeping their audience's trust is a priority.
They've been getting more skeptical with the news media. They're losing sight of the truth, and that makes their future a little more unclear. In trying to decide what the future looks like, they've become social entrepreneurs. They've been wanting to tackle these certain issues for a long time, and now the time is right. So let's talk about some political hot topics and how YAYA individuals think they can shape them. They have layers and layers of anxiety. They're worried that the problems they care about might never be solved.
Social issues are a top-of-mind concern for these individuals. In fact, the American Psychological Association says that more than half calls the current political climate a source of stress. On top of that, we wanted to dive deeper into this finding. So we gave our survey respondents a list of current social issues and asked them to tell us how often they worry about each of them. At least 72% said that they worry about every single issue that we listed, from data privacy to police brutality to sexual assault. On top of that, more than 1/3 said that they always worry about mass shootings and always worry about discrimination.
Now think about an issue like climate change. It affects the entire world, so of course it's a core concern for this demographic. Sustainability issues worry them because they can't think about the rest of their lives if they're worried they won't have a planet to live on. 88% of YAYA individuals agree that unless we all take immediate action to reduce global warming emissions, these impacts will only get worse. They look at the planet, they see its problems, but they're still looking for someone to provide a real solution.
So another layer of anxiety is added. YAYA individuals feel that they're the ones who have to step up to the responsibility of creating a better world. They believe that a better world and a better America is an inclusive one. They want to be proud of their country. When we asked our survey respondents to tell us what patriotism means to them, they said,
It's being willing to engage in the criticism of something to make it better.
it's not letting America become a place of hate.
It's creating a country where people are allowed to be themselves.
Of over 700 responses, the general theme shows that YAYA individuals believe that loving their country is loving the people in it and making it a better place for them.
They want to make a difference. In fact, at least 77% believe they can make a difference on issues ranging from gun policy to gender equality. And here's how. They're vocal. When we ask YAYA individuals what they think is important to their idea of being an American, 94% believe it's the ability to voice their own opinion, and 87% believe it's engaging in political discussion.
You may expect these individuals to handle certain topics with sensitivity, but you'd be surprised to find that YAYA individuals aren't backing down from having tough conversations, even if it means offending others. 80% believe that political correctness silences important discussions in our society. Some call the YAYA demographic snowflakes, but that is simply not the reality.
However, YAYA individuals don't want to start the social conversations all on their own. Corporations could help lighten the load by addressing issues this demographic cares about. The Clorox Company participated in a day of understanding with 150 other companies. They had open and honest conversations surrounding sensitive topics that may make headlines, but normally would be avoided at the office. Not only that, but they had a Check Your Blind Spot tour bus where employees could put on VR goggles and experience their career through a different lens.
Companies like this let YAYA individuals know that a better society is almost within reach. So we talked about how they're starting the change. Now let's talk about how they're going to get it all done. The number of challenges tower over 18 to 24-year-olds if they act alone. So YAYA individuals are putting out their Help Wanted sign. They need reliable allies and people in power to help lift their weight.
Yes, YAYA consumers can do a lot on their own. Today's 18 to 24-year-old is the most individualistic generation yet. Except when it comes to large-scale societal issues, they know that collaboration is the key to long-term relief.
That's right. Nearly 90% of young adults agree that a better global future can be achieved through collaboration. This means that they want to see solutions in writing. They want legislative changes that cut under the surface to deliver results.
They can't keep waiting for officials to act, so they reach out to another source of help: corporations. If a corporation doesn't support them, they won't support it. YAYA individuals have high expectations and will call out those who don't meet them. In fact, YAYA individuals want corporations to do some heavy lifting. More than 70% of YAYA individuals believe that corporations should address issues ranging from climate change to data privacy. They expect brands to be good corporate citizens, but on top of that, they want corporations to be their friends who support them and empathize with them. But if companies aren't being supportive, the YAYA demographic has a backup plan. Dare we say, cancel culture. It's a public shaming phenomenon where any person or brands can be called out on social media and declared canceled.
We found that over half of this demographic would write a bad review online if a brand disappointed them, or they would just boycott the company altogether. They're standing their ground, and they refuse to lower their standards for anyone, even employers. More than half of this demographic would refuse a job offer from a company that isn't green, and just under half would be willing to accept lower pay at a company that is green.
They're tired of corporations letting them down, but luckily they see the bigger picture. They have the power to start the change and call on corporations to help them finish it. Take Everlane, for example. Last month, when President Trump officially pulled out of the Paris Agreement, Everlane donated $50,000 to the Natural Resources Defense Council, making themselves active advocates. Not only that, but they asked their consumers to call their elected officials, as well as share with the company what they do to fight the climate crisis in their community.
Working with you is the answer they've been looking for, and it's been hidden in plain sight all this time. You see, they're smart individuals, and they've learned how to get the results they want. YAYA individuals can use their own influence to unify leaders and citizens. Not to be all kumbaya, but YAYA individuals are looking for ways to connect with people. Because when you really understand them for who they are, you'll see they care about being good citizens, not just for their own benefit, but for everyone else's. Collaboration is the answer.
All right, we've shown the depths of the YAYA market, but here's where it gets tricky. In short, this market is full of dualities. When it comes to the environment, government, and news, this group is all about collaboration. But in terms of social media and relationships, YAYA individuals tend to do their own thing.
They're all about social. There's no illusion to it. But how they're using social is becoming difficult to understand.
They're finding connections in both the real and digital realms. With YAYA consumers living in both worlds at once, it can be hard to tell exactly where to reach them.
Put simply, they walk through life with a secondhand lens.
Now, imagine you're looking through a pair of binoculars. You zoom in, and everything comes into focus. You're able to zero in on a person or situation and understand it, observe its intricacies. This is the way YAYA individuals prefer to live their lives. They crave secondhand experiences. As a matter of fact, YouTube is the only app that over 60% of YAYA consumers check multiple times per day.
Let's think about it. The YAYA market grew up searching YouTube to learn anything from how to French braid hair to how to tie a tie. It feels natural for them to flock to the online world for answers, which has led to a reliance on video. For instance, 82% say they gain confidence from watching others do things online before doing it themselves.
This age group has basically created a new genre of entertainment. For 59% of YAYA individuals, it is just as fulfilling to watch someone play a video game as it is playing it themselves. They're surviving on the experiences of others, and this has shaped the way they view their relationship with the world and with each other.
YAYA individuals are rarely disconnected. Connectivity exists on their home screens and at home. This market wants to maintain closer relationships with their social circle, and only 2% of YAYA individuals live alone. For them, roommates are a second family, but that in-person connection doesn't stop there. 25% of the YAYA market says spending time with their parents is in their top 3 favorite activities.
Now, online friendships aren't as common, but this concept is definitely accepted by YAYA individuals. In fact, 65% of the YAYA market agrees that meeting people through social media is a healthy way to start a friendship. Whether it be hanging with roommates at home or DMing their online best friend, this age group wants to build connections. So how can marketers make sense of all this? Well, when it comes to video, companies should be creating content that would pop up on a user's recommended page.
We applaud Glamour, a prominent women's magazine. The magazine has produced content ranging from how to live on a $40,000 salary in LA to who killed Tupac. It feels natural for viewers to watch these videos because the brand stays on the sidelines and allows the story to tell itself.
Lastly, consumers want online experiences that allow them to interact with brands. Marketers should join in on video platforms familiar to the market, like Twitch.
Wendy's is quite the star at this. Last year, they took gaming to the next level when they dropped into Fortnite. For 9 hours straight, Wendy's slashed burger freezers to emphasize their dedication to their fresh, never frozen standard. By doing this, they landed on a site that felt natural to their viewers.
Now that this illusion has become clear, let's move on to the next.
People will tell you that the YAYA market is self-absorbed and selfie-obsessed, but we're here to set the record straight. YAYA individuals go deeper than vanity.
For them, it isn't about filters and followers. The internet is a place where they can learn and better themselves. Let's take a closer look.
To the unsuspecting eye, a high follower count is the equivalent of credibility online. But for those who have been bombarded with online opinions and product reviews for years, they just want people they can trust. At this point, the majority of YAYA individuals believe influencers are just in it for the money and don't even use the products they promote.
But this group can be swayed to trust a select few. So what's the trick? Influencers must share the positives and negatives of products. For nearly 90% of YAYA individuals, highlighting both the good and the bad builds credibility.
And it doesn't just stop there. For 68%, they say that influencers are more credible when they have a smaller but dedicated following. YAYA individuals want more than just a hashtag ad written in an Instagram caption. They want to follow real, genuine, relatable influencers.
Another way into the heart of the YAYA market, audio. From podcasts to oddly satisfying sounds, audio has found a way to weave together beautiful narratives and completely mesmerize this age group.
So why exactly are YAYA listeners so drawn to podcasts? Ask around and you're likely to get one of 2 answers. For 53%, they listen for entertainment, and for 54%, they listen for education.
From pop culture to infamous murders, this demographic is drawn to a wide variety of podcast topics that encompass both entertainment and education. This market is pressing play on self-enhancement.
Okay, now we're going to talk about a part of the audio world you likely haven't heard of. This is ASMR, aka Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, or better yet, oddly satisfying content.
We get it. It seems weird. YAYA consumers, they really are mesmerized by this oddly satisfying, these tingly sensations. In fact, nearly 60% of YAYA consumers enjoy ASMR. That's right. A majority of this demographic is seeking out content such as people cutting soap or softly whispering sci-fi role plays into a mic.
And it's crucial to note that ASMR doesn't just stop with sound. Visuals are just as important in this realm. Multimedia ASMR is favored by 34% of the YAYA market. Like we mentioned earlier, YAYA individuals are creating their new genre of entertainment, watching people do things. And ASMR fits right in.
Of those who like ASMR, 24% enjoy it for its entertainment factor, but that's not the only perk. 23% enjoy it because it's stress relieving, and they're really just looking for a way to satisfy these sensory bliss cravings through audio.
Yeah, the YAYA market wants sensory bliss, and ASMR is that nice change of pace from the overload of social media they've grown accustomed to.
Are YAYA consumers elusive? Absolutely, but it isn't as difficult as it may seem to connect with them. Dive into ASMR. Create content that utilizes both auditory and visual stimuli. It may seem daunting at first, but the payoff is priceless. We applaud brands who are taking risks within the ASMR world, like McDonald's, who went all in with their hypnotizing Egg McMuffin ad.
Seriously, Jordan, I love this video, and McDonald's jumped into the ASMR world in such a natural way.
Now, tip number 2, revamp your idea of the quintessential influencer. Focus on those who will truly review your product.
For instance, look at makeup YouTuber Jeffree Star. He has reviewed countless makeup products, and his brutal honesty has garnered him an incredibly dedicated following.
Bottom line, carefully select influencers who are honest, candid, and relatable.
And lastly, take a leap into the podcast world. Marketers can either be guest stars on podcasts, or they can follow the lead of Trader Joe's and create their very own. All right, now we're going to switch gears a little bit and help you gain clarity in a different realm of the YAYA lifestyle. We're talking social norms and all things romance. In these arenas, YAYA individuals are redefining and breaking down boundaries.
They're deconstructing everything, from the finite ideas of gender and sexual orientation to the structures of dating.
They like to keep life fluid. Let's take a closer look.
First up, YAYA relationships. Or more like, why are YAYA individuals so scared to commit to them? In short, their minds are elsewhere. In fact, 90% say they're focused on bettering themselves. On top of that, nearly half say they don't want to be in a relationship until they're established in their careers.
Thankfully, this generation hasn't lost that zest for romance quite yet. Although they say they're focusing on bettering themselves, 64% want to be married in the next 5 years. And if that isn't contradictory enough, almost 70% want kids in the next 10 years.
Trust us, it can be quite a challenge to understand this particular illusion. YAYA consumers are living in a world of me, myself, and I, then us. For them, romance may be on the back burner right now, but it's simmering, and it still plays an important role in their future dreams.
That's right. Romance isn't dead. It's just different. And it's still a main objective, with 64% of them saying the one exists.
But how they're finding the one has changed. While they're still dating, YAYA individuals have a looser definition for what they consider a date.
Formal or informal, romantic or casual, people just want to get to know each other. 49% of YAYA individuals loosely define dating and are more open-minded about its parameters.
To YAYA consumers, a date is simply any time you're spending with a crush or significant other, no matter how small or menial the activity.
Or it's a night of two people enjoying each other's company and getting to know each other.
Last but not least, YAYA consumers aren't buying into binaries. Instead, they're transforming gender and sexual orientation norms.
YAYA individuals aren't constrained to labels as past generations have been. About 1/3 of this age group identifies as sexually fluid. This means that 33% of YAYA individuals say their sexual orientation can change over time.
In general, the traditional views of gender and sexual orientation are being deconstructed by the YAYA market. For instance, 41% agree that your gender does not have to be the sex you were assigned at birth. In addition, categorizing everything into gender-specific sections just isn't attractive to this age group.
When asked what non-gender specific products they prefer, razors, shoes, deodorant, and bath products ranked within the top 5 for both YAYA men and women. Bottom line, you might find both men and women buying the same shampoo or pair of shoes. YAYA individuals aren't tied to gender and sexual orientation. They're open, self-expressive, and unapologetically themselves.
So how can marketers use this information to provide a better consumer experience? Well, they can definitely play a role in the dating space. Research shows that YAYA individuals crave connection and intimacy. So here's what you can do. Create ways for YAYA couples to get to know each other and build that connection. These could be experiences for them to share together, such as Netflix's co-watching contract for couples. Basically, both partners sign the contract and promise not to fall asleep during the episode, get distracted by their phone, or skip ahead to the next episode without their partner.
And lastly, marketers can start to phase out gender-specific products in certain categories, such as razors, clothing, and shoes. Glossier did this well when they partnered with Troye Sivan, a musician and a member of the LGBTQ+ community. The partnership included a glitter-based makeup campaign, which broke down the gender barriers of the beauty community.
By now, we hope the once elusive YAYA market has come into focus. Their actions can often contradict their actual preferences and beliefs. They live in dualities.
Now it's time to move on to employment, healthcare, and finance. Each of these areas are interesting enough on their own, but when they come together, they form the totality of who the YAYA individual is, finally settling our confusion surrounding this demographic.
It's not always apparent that YAYA workers struggle to balance their work and social lives, and this can cause misconceptions about the factors that most influence their job search. Turns out, 62% cited passion as more important in a career, compared to 38% reporting that salary is their main focus.
Between being passionate in their careers and having so many things on their plate, YAYA individuals are often susceptible to burnout. But the good news is they know this is only temporary, and they look beyond burnout to focus on their long-term goals and the bigger picture. In short, YAYA individuals are burned out, yet building up again. But it's not hard to see that YAYA consumers are willing to stretch themselves thin to make ends meet.
In fact, 70% of our survey respondents have had side hustles. 74% believe they need more than 2 jobs, and as many as 86% have considered supplementing their income with a side hustle. So even on top of their full-time jobs, YAYA individuals are spending even more time trying to make money. It's safe to say they have a lot going on.
So companies should recognize these side hustles and tap into talent by creating more opportunities for part-time and freelance workers. With having so many hidden things going on, individuals in this demographic are bound to burn out. As a result of balancing jobs, side hustles, and social lives, 80% of respondents reported feeling burned out. That's why communication is key with this age group.
Companies who communicate with YAYA employees quickly, effectively, and empathetically will gain their respect and attention. Effective communication can go a long way with this group, especially because there's no clear-cut path for YAYA individuals on how to interact with an employer.
This is apparent in ghosting, which is when an individual doesn't respond to someone after building a relationship. In the workplace, it can even be accepting a job and never showing up. Oftentimes, this demographic doesn't see they're doing it, but employers do.
YAYA job prospects may appear disrespectful as a result of their ghosting, but upon closer inspection, it might not be their intention. 66% of employers reported to Randstad that they have been ghosted, despite only 22% of our respondents stating they have ghosted an employer. This discrepancy makes it clear that YAYA job prospects aren't doing this on purpose. They just feel left in the dark during the application process.
To avoid the ghosting epidemic, employers should clearly communicate expectations and hiring timelines. One company that does a good job of keeping applicants informed is Veterans United. On their applicant landing page, they include the step-by-step process of an applicant's hiring journey from applying online to receiving a job offer.
Beyond ghosting, it's hard to look past the 9-to-5 jobs listed on their resumes and understand that YAYA workers have broader experience than first meets the eye. Many have already tried their hand at different types of employment, such as part-time jobs, full-time jobs, and freelancing.
With having all this experience, it's not hard to see that this demographic has an entrepreneurial spirit. As many as 30% believe they will own their own company someday, and beyond that, they have confidence in their skills. 70% reported they'd leave a job within 2 years if they weren't promoted, and 84% reported they'd leave a job within 2 years if they weren't given a raise.
So it becomes clear that YAYA individuals are optimistic about their future careers. And when you piece together all the truths of this demographic, you will begin to see the full picture of the YAYA professional.
With spreading themselves thin in their work and social lives, YAYA consumers' minds can get clouded. That's why they make taking care of themselves both physically and mentally a priority. The YAYA demographic sees the decreasing stigma around mental health, and they're acting on it. YAYA consumers are leading the charge of a mental health revolution, ranking above common dangers like drugs, alcohol, and e-cigarettes. YAYA individuals reported that mental health is the most damaging issue facing their generation.
And although there's a perception that physical health is more important than mental health, YAYA consumers see them as equally important. In fact, 81% of YAYA individuals believe that seeing a therapist for mental health is the same as seeing a doctor for physical health. Mental health is so important to the demographic that 91% of our respondents agree that employers should recognize it as a valid reason to use a sick day. And 84% agree that employers should also offer paid days off for mental health.
Because mental health is so important to this age group, individuals need to be able to discuss this topic freely with no hidden agenda.
This focus on self-care has spread into the busy lives of YAYA consumers, and they are actively finding ways to incorporate self-care into their routines. In summary, YAYA consumers have a stronger focus on self-care than older demographics.
By definition, self-care is any activity done deliberately in order to take care of mental, physical, and emotional health. YAYA consumers prefer the kind of self-care that can be easily built into their busy schedules, like spending time with friends and family, napping, exercising, and playing video games.
And even though it's not always apparent, 72% of YAYA individuals participate in self-care activities at least once per week. 88% of those surveyed believe they should participate in self-care activities at least once a week, even if they aren't actively doing it.
Brands that spot this demographic's focus on self-care as an opportunity will see the benefits. These consumers prioritize the time they make for themselves and value brands that do the same.
An example of this would be how Adobe, LinkedIn, and General Electric all cover the subscription cost of Headspace, which is a meditation app, for their employees. Some companies are even integrating mental health into their corporate structure, like Deloitte, who recently introduced the position of Chief Wellbeing Officer, who oversees the work-life balance, health, and wellness of employees.
Self-care can be used to fight off the stressors of everyday life, like finances. Nevertheless, realities like bills, loans, and credit cards force YAYA consumers to open the door to the world of finances. But YAYA consumers are pushing through their financial anxiety to pave the way for a new era of finance.
The truth is, their financial priorities are divided between the future and fun. Maybe that's because they're unclear on what the future even holds. Their financial objectives are split between paying expenses, saving for the future, and having extra cash to have fun.
And with these financial objectives, the older the YAYA market gets, the harder it is for them to envision a financial future independent from family. Overall, YAYA consumers expect to be financially independent from family by 27, but that number varies depending on the age of respondent. Younger YAYA consumers anticipate financial independence from family by 25, whereas older YAYA consumers aim for 28.
But despite their anxiety surrounding personal finances, YAYA individuals are confident in their financial skills due to an abundance of financial resources. Turns out, 84% are confident in their ability to manage a credit card, 80% are confident in their ability to budget, and 78% are confident in interpreting their credit score.
Even with their confidence in the ability to manage a credit card, only 2/3 of them actually have one. But YAYA individuals are putting their financial acumen into practice in other ways, with 75% of them checking their bank account balances multiple times a week.
Even though it's true that YAYA individuals are navigating their finances with new technologies, their priorities are still rooted in security.
More so than other demographics, 48% of our respondents use digital wallets, which are wallets that live on your mobile devices instead of in your back pocket. What they use these digital wallet for varies between debit and credit card purchases, movie and sports tickets, and gift cards.
In addition to digital wallets, YAYA individuals are utilizing other payment technologies, with 29% using Venmo, 37% using Cash App, and 60% using PayPal. Even though YAYA consumers are embracing new technology, they're still unsure when it comes to some areas of finance. Despite what popular media would have you believe, YAYA consumers are hesitant when it comes to cryptocurrency. 54% of respondents are still unlikely to use cryptocurrency due to the lack of security that comes with this digital asset.
So marketers need to see that YAYA individuals are torn between saving for the future and living in the moment. Companies that can reach these individuals by helping to bridge that gap. For example, financial institutions can install budget tracking categories and limits to help prevent a YAYA consumer from overspending, in turn alleviating financial anxiety and becoming a friend to them.
As you can see, the YAYA demographic is clouded in misconceptions. Sometimes we have to look from different angles to see the bigger picture, but there are benefits to those who choose to see this demographic under no illusion. Now that our research has allowed you to see YAYA consumers for who they truly are, we hope it has helped to reveal some of the opportunities available to you as you move forward. Looking beyond the initial perceptions of this group can change the way you work with and learn from YAYA individuals moving forward, helping you best understand the ways to build relationships with this group.
However, this demographic is ever evolving, and there will always be new truths to uncover. To continue exposing the core truths of this demographic, visit MOJO-Ad.com to view and share this year's State of the YAYA report. We appreciate you taking time to spend today to get to know the YAYA market. On behalf of the MOJO Ad team, thank you. We will now invite our researchers down for a question and answer panel. If you're viewing online, you can ask questions in the Facebook live chat or tweet at us at MOJO Ad.
Now we're going to open up the floor for questions from the crowd and social media. So if anyone has any questions. Okay. So do you read a hard copy newspaper?
I do not personally. In addition, most YAYA individuals are not reading a hard copy newspaper. We're seeing a rise of online circulation with most newspapers. When you look at some top newspapers like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, they saw massive increases in their online circulation since 2016. I believe New York Times had an increase in 42% and Wall Street Journal at 26%. And those are mostly going in the form of newsletters directly to people's inboxes and their email. So it's very personalized and straight to the point for these individuals.
All right, this is a question from Facebook. Could you explain the methodology behind your survey?
So we initially started our research looking at secondary sources like Pew, Mintel, other State of the YAYA reports. And then from there, we looked at common trends that we were seeing in 18 to 24-year-olds today. And then for our primary research, we conducted a survey using Qualtrics and got 733 respondents. And our goal was to make sure that it matched U.S. Census Bureau statistics and data. So we were glad that that actually matched up as well. So we looked through that, found some insights, and that's how we came up with our presentation.
We have a question from the crowd.
I was curious about the percentage of people that had a credit card. I thought you said that it was low as far as how many actually had a credit card and used it. Did I hear that correctly or not?
So correct. Only 2/3 of YAYA consumers have a credit card, which is low in comparison to other payment methods they're using. Like they use Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal, as we explained. So we are just showing the decrease in the overall use of credit cards.
Okay. That would explain how they're confident about managing money. I just was trying to put it together.
And then we had another question from the crowd.
Hi, I was surprised by the number of respondents that said they fact check and the number that said they don't fact check. So did you ask how they fact check, what they do to try to get to the truth?
We didn't specifically ask the question on if they were using fact-checking sites such as PolitiFact or Snopes, but we did find that a lot of their searches are going through Google. Obviously, a large percentage of their searches, regardless if they're fact-checking or not, are going through Google, and they may be coming across those certain sites that are devoted to fact-checking. We don't have any specific data on specific sites that they're using.
We have another question from Facebook. How do yayas feel about ads or branded content on platforms like Twitch?
I would say our research mostly shows that YAYA individuals care most about authenticity. So when it comes to branded platforms or showing like a branded Twitch live stream, it needs to be really authentic. We use the Wendy's case study because why it was so successful because it was so authentic. It matched the brand's personality and the tone and the way that they've gone about themselves on other social media platforms. So our biggest piece of recommendation from our secondary and primary research is to do what feels most authentic and most natural when it comes to branding and sponsoring platforms.
So when I think about an 18 to 24-year-old range, it seems like a lot of growth probably happens between an 18-year-old and a 24-year-old. Did you guys do any segmenting of the data to see if there were big differences between what an 18-year-old would say versus a 24-year-old?
Yeah, so one big difference that we noticed in the finance section at least was that discrepancy in when they think they're going to be financially independent. So when they're on the younger end, which is the 18 to 20-year-old range, they think that it's going to be, 25. They're more optimistic toward it. However, once they get to that older range, they're thinking it's going to be 28. So you can see as they're progressing through that 18 to 24-year-old range, they're almost kind of pushing off their financial independence after they kind of get a better feel of how things really are.
Another aspect that we saw a really interesting discrepancy was we cross-tabbed social media use. So we were seeing which ages and genders were using which social media. It was really interesting because 18 to 21 were heavily on Snapchat and Instagram. And then that 22 to 24 age range was still pretty addicted to Facebook. Like they still liked Facebook. So we saw or in the 50s were preferring Facebook, where that number was dropping to around 20 to 30% for that 18 to 21-year-old. But they were heavily on Snapchat and Instagram. The only place that we saw a really consistent presence online is YouTube, and that was over 60% checks YouTube multiple times a day.
Wow, make sure you send that one to Google. They'll be very happy about that. In the second section, you mentioned that occasionally yayas can, I can't remember the word you said, but basically you kind of delete a brand or call them out. So what happens? How do brands get back in good graces after that happens?
Well, one example that's just happened very recently is the example of Chick-fil-A. They were opening up their first location in the United Kingdom, and they actually had a lot of backlash from the local population regarding their past donations to anti-LGBTQ organizations. And so a lot of young adults specifically did cancel that brand. And we saw Chick-fil-A actually backtrack a little bit and say they were going to no longer donate to those organizations. So that's one example of how the influence of these individuals can really come to play.
There's another example with a popular YouTuber, James Charles. He got into some hot waters over the summer, and his fandom declared him canceled, and he lost millions and millions of followers within a week. So what he did was he posted some apology videos and really went into depth about how he's going to make this right. And a lot of those followers came back. So as long as you're being truthful and authentic with your apology statements, then it's possible to regain trust, although the timeline may not be super clear.
Okay, so thank you for the presentation. Anybody who's known the baby boomer generation has heard the wild days of the 60s and Woodstock, and most of them have changed in direction of where they would say they were at that age. So in using foresight, looking at where the data is going, what would you say you expect would be a counter angle that's going to happen with yayas?
Just to clarify, is this something that we see YAYA individuals maybe changing the structure of something that's currently happening?
Yeah, so you mentioned, for instance, the not showing up to a job interview, and I'm sure or a job to accept a job, and I'm sure a lot of people in here groan like, oh God, I would never do that. So of course, there's going to probably be things that the generation will say, we didn't get that right, we need a change. So what would you just anticipate what you've seen in the past with yayas might indicate a change?
Well, just kind of building off your ghosting example, this is a notion that's applied usually in relationships and like friendships or in dating. And we actually saw secondary research when we started analyzing everything about ghosting entering the workplace. So this is like a new phenomenon in that way, and it's kind of a lack of understanding on their part that they are doing this ghosting. Like we said, only 22% of our respondents in our survey actively knew they were doing this versus our 66% that are being ghosted. So there's a huge disconnect there, and there is probably still a curve of like growing up and everything, but there is a phenomenon in the ghosting sphere.
In addition, when we talk about news consumption for these individuals, when we compared 18 to 24-year-olds to older individuals were much more loyal to specific news sources, whereas younger people were not loyal at all. So trust takes time, and so as a possibility as they age, so are their loyalty to news organizations.
Another question from Facebook Live. Do YAYA individuals think social media companies are more trustworthy than news companies due to their dependence on them?
So we don't have specific data on the trustworthiness of social media sites specifically, but what I can tell you is that most of our 18 to 24-year-old demographic is finding their news from social media sites. It's really because of a convenience factor. So they're no longer seeking out the news and paying for it, but they're just finding it on their social platforms naturally in their feeds as they're scrolling through Facebook. So I wouldn't say that there's more of a trustworthiness. I would just say that they find their news more often from these sites, and it doesn't mean that they're necessarily trusting it, but they're probably being exposed to more types of sources than they would be.
So I had a question, a little bit. I'm curious about what you found out about security and privacy, and I'm specifically interested in hearing if concerns about security translate into behaviors to protect one's privacy or to protect security. So what are YAYA consumers doing to protect their privacy or to be more secure?
I would say with finances specifically, one of their practices is they are actively checking their bank accounts. So that's almost a small step that they can take to make sure everything is in order within that account, because 3/4 are checking it multiple times a week, which we were kind of surprised by because in secondary, we were almost getting the vibe that they don't check their bank accounts super often. So I feel like that is one clear way that they are trying to take some precautions to make sure that they're staying on top of things that they know that they can control.
Additionally, in our secondary research regarding finances, we actually found that among the top 4 importance factors of using mobile payment platforms, security was ranked as number 1 or number 2. So they are really, really hesitant about using these new platforms unless their security is ensured to make sure that they still have privacy and security.
And from the first part of the presentation, just a little bit more of a top-line view, more than 70% of YAYA individuals want companies to address issues like data privacy. So being transparent and upfront, making clear instructions about what data is being collected and what data is being sold is incredibly important to this demographic.
We have another question from Facebook. Hi, great presentation. Wondering if you've noticed any trends among YAYAs moving away from do-it-yourself to someone doing it for them. For example, paying someone to assemble IKEA furniture.
Thanks. We like the presentation too. We appreciate that comment. But we specifically didn't ask, in at least my group's research, about the willingness to have or pay people to do things for them ourselves, such as assemble IKEA furniture. But we were seeing that YAYA individuals want to learn how to do things themselves. When we talk about how 82% gain confidence from watching others do things online before doing it themselves, they're still going online to figure out how to do things themselves. So we're not seeing a trend of just finding someone else to do it, although we didn't ask specifically about paying someone else to do things such as assemble furniture for you.
In the finance realm, we did explore a bit about, because there's so much institutional knowledge that kind of comes with that realm. There's a lot of new different apps like TurboTax and different programs that can help consumers kind of guide them along their process similar to what Mackenzie was saying, but we have seen the rise of some payment services like Afterpay that do have a small fee that allow you to break up your payments over time versus as paying in whole at the beginning. So we have seen those rise up a little bit in the financial sphere, making it more accommodating and also accessible for younger demographics to afford more expensive items.
Also, in a more abstract view, I believe over 90% were not willing to pay for the news. They're often finding that through family and friends who can contextualize it for them on social media platforms or in face-to-face conversation. So that's one example of them not being willing to pay for something that historically you've had to pay for.
Stereotypically, they talk about how that this generation has trouble talking face-to-face with people in regards to conflict or asking what they want. And so a 24-year-old might have gotten a smartphone and texted a lot in high school. Now kids are getting them in 4th grade, unfortunately. And so how does that play out for 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds asking for the promotion or asking for the raise compared to just leaving and the employer never has a chance to have that conversation?
I can't answer specifically for finances and employers, but what we did find in our research through secondary, we looked a lot at Mintel, and we were finding that this age group is the loneliest age group, and they're craving in-person connection. So while it's a common misconception or a thought that the YAYA market really wants to be mostly on their phones, they don't want that in-person face-to-face talk, we were finding a lot during secondary research that they really do crave that. They want that. And that ended up playing out in our primary research when we asked about who lives alone, how important your roommates are to you, how important your family is to you. And so we were finding that in primary and secondary that it can be a misconception at times whether they want that only text or email or that kind of relationship, but they actually are really craving that face-to-face relationship too.
Another one of our viewers would like you to further explain what YAYAs think about healthcare.
So we kind of touched on this in our presentation, but they view physical health the same as mental health, which just shows that rising demographic really thinks mental health is super important. We asked a lot of questions also in our primary research about healthcare, and like Maya mentioned about what some of the most important factors are with accessibility and how to get that primary care a lot of times, which it turned out that there weren't exact sources that they were going to on the go. So in the healthcare regard, they just want to see a welcoming space that knows that they're taking care of both physically and mentally.
Additionally, we found that there were a lot of factors for reasons that they weren't going to the doctor regularly as much, just because of a lack of time, not prioritizing it. It kind of turns into this, it ties back to the common problem of working on way too many things at once, attending like the burnout as well. So it was just one of the things that they were pushing towards the back burner. So that's something that we noticed about the common forms of traditional healthcare as well.
Another way you might see this being different for our demographic is kind of going off your point about burnout. A lot of YAYA individuals are looking to their employers to help provide some of their mental health care. So we had a couple case studies about companies paying for the subscription cost of Headspace, or the University of Missouri just paid for the subscriptions cost for its students of Sanvelo, which is also a meditation app. So we're looking to places that aren't just like normal health institutions, but also to corporations and organizations that we're part of to provide part of that healthcare for us.
We've got another question from Facebook. Did you ask about current relationship status, and did relationship status impact answers or behaviors in any way?
We didn't specifically ask about relationship status. In the survey, we mainly asked age, demographics, and political affiliation.
We have another one. Let me get to it. Oh, someone asked about the methodology behind the survey. We did that one. It's a lot of questions.
Okay.
Okay. Amidst concerns of data security, tech companies like Google and Apple are releasing checking accounts and credit cards. Do you think YAYAs would see products like these as more secure than products from traditional financial institutions?
Kind of going off her point earlier, only 54% actually use cryptocurrency, which as a cultural phenomenon, it seems very popular and big and everything. Like how we've talked about, they are still rooted in security. So I think there are alternative forms of payment methods rising up to the top, like PayPal, Apple Pay, and other things with digital wallets, but they still are relying on that trust. And I think it's just coming in different forms that they can access this.
Another viewer says, there was so much research. What was the most interesting and impactful part of your findings?
From our team's data specifically, I was most entertained and intrigued by the data that we have on gender-specific products and gender and sexual orientation. That's something that in our society has been a very set construct, and so seeing the 18 to 24-year-old age range really be vocal about gender-specific products was so interesting. So having this age group want non-gender specific razors, clothing, shoes, bath products, that's something that for marketers who are in these categories, if they want to be successful, especially within this age group, they're going to have to change and they're going to have to start revamping some of their products if they really want to speak to these consumers.
I would say one thing that stood out to me personally was just how much is on the minds of these individuals. We talked a lot about mental health, Maddie and Grace did, but Allie and I specifically mentioned how much they worry about a list of different things, specifically the fact that more than 1/3 said that they always worry about the possibility of a mass shooting. We thought that was pretty humbling and pretty groundbreaking, just to know that that's omnipresent in their minds when they're going to things like a movie theater or a concert or even going into school during the day. So just learning about that, I think, was really interesting.
Another thing that I found especially interesting in the research for the first section was that though YAYA individuals are very value-centric and we kind of think of them in some ways as politically charged, when we ask them about political party affiliation and political affiliation, a very large percentage of respondents answered neutral or neither when we asked them political affiliation, with 39% when prompted to ask Democrat or Republican. They answered neither or neutral. And then a similar percentage, I believe 42, when we asked them conservative or liberal, they answered neutral. So we're seeing a trend to more independent thinking in the way that they don't want to subscribe specifically to groups, though they may have individual values that they prioritize, and that really reflects the individualistic minds of the YAYA market.
All right, with that, I think we're going to end the Q&A session. Thank you so much for coming today and listening to our presentation. We were so happy to share all this great research with you. If you'd like to see more of this, make sure to check out all of the book volumes that we're putting out of each individual research to get more in-depth look at all the specific statistics we couldn't cover as in-depth as we wanted to in the presentation. So thank you all.